Years ago, not long after I'd moved to Los Angeles, I took over the regular classes of a very popular teacher at a busy gym in West Hollywood. The other teacher had moved back east, and I knew a lot of his students were bummed out, so I went in knowing I'd have my work cut out for me. After a few weeks of dealing with that understandable, I'm not sure I'm gonna like this energy, things were good, and the vibe in the room was awesome. We were having fun. People were focusing and breathing and sweating and laughing. We had a good thing going. Except for this one guy. He always stood in the same place at the front of the room, and he was there like clockwork 3 times a week. But he was hostile to me, frequently shot me dirty looks in class, and often shook his head at something I'd said. Sometimes he'd even roll his eyes. I wanted to talk to him about it, but he always arrived right before class and took off right after. I figured he was there because it was the only time slot that worked in his schedule. Several months went by this way. I'd grown to accept that he didn't like me for whatever reason, but that he must have liked the class enough to deal with it. Then one day we bumped into each other outside the gym and I said hi to him. We had a short conversation on the way up to class, and although he was guarded, I was surprised that he was willing to talk at all. It was the first time I had sensed vulnerability underneath the layers of aggression, and it gave me a feeling of hope. He started showing up a little earlier, and he didn't fly right out the door after class anymore. Whenever the opportunity presented itself, before or after class, I'd say hi and chat with him for a few minutes. He started talking to some of the other regulars, too. I grew to learn that he was a screenwriter who spent most of his time alone with his laptop. One day, he stayed after class, and when everyone had left, he asked if I'd like to meet him to go for a hike up Runyon Canyon. It felt meaningful to me, like it had taken a lot for him to ask, so I took my dog and met him there a few days later. We walked and talked for 3 hours. I learned a lot about his background, the struggles he'd been facing, his painful family history, and his successful battle against addiction. Somewhere along the hike, I started laughing and shaking my head. I told him I'd been convinced for the better part of the year that he pretty much detested me. His mouth fell open, and he told me that taking my class was the one thing that had gotten him through, that he'd been closed off emotionally for years and was finally starting to feel open again. I told him I'd been thrown off by the dirty looks and head shaking, and he said he'd been angry with himself. A lot of the things I'd been saying really resonated with him, and he'd been shaking his head at himself, not me. He looked at me that way because he felt like I was holding a giant mirror up to his face while keeping his feet to the flame. But he didn't mean for it to seem like he was feeling angry or aggressive. Surprised was more like it, like when you pick up a drink thinking it's tea, only to find out it's apple cider vinegar. I learned so much from this experience. I'd created an entire story in my head that wasn't even close to reality. I'd interpreted his behavior through my own lens. My perception had been distorted by my own insecurities, fears, and doubts about what I had to offer, and whether I was talking too much during class about the deeper healing aspects of the practice, when maybe people just wanted a workout. This guy followed me all over Los Angeles to take class. When I left the gym in West Hollywood and moved all my classes to Santa Monica, he drove down 5 times a week without batting an eye. For a while, he was between cars and rode his bike back and forth, which was no small feat. Even though he has since moved away, he'll surprise me and show up in class once in a blue moon when he's in town, with a big smile, hugs, and lots of love. He's my oldest regular, this guy who I thought couldn't stand my guts. We all fill in the blanks and construct our own versions of stories. Someone says something or does something, and we assume it must mean the same thing it would if we said that.